Welcome to the Attorney Post, your source for inside baseball talk about the legal field with the top attorneys in the country. Here's your host, Justin West.
All right. Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Attorney Post. As a reminder, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any, and that's why we do this podcast. This is a podcast to introduce you to lots of different attorneys who are experts in their field, and I'm actually really excited today. I'm talking to Kirsten Howe. Kirsten is the founder and managing partner of the Absolute Trust Counsel, of Absolute Trust Counsel. There's no article in there, no the, out in California. And in a few minutes here, we're going to meet with her and pick her brain on lots of stuff. She apparently has a specialty working with disabled elderly clients, and she's got a lot of keen insight on that. So I'm really excited to get to that conversation. As always, before we begin, I'm going to jump over and do a quick sponsored promotion here. But of course, before we do that, I want to show you her website. So this is absolutetrustcounsel.com. And here's Kirsten, and she will be talking to me here in just a few minutes. Our first sponsor is going to be Injury Attorney Leads today. If you're a personal injury attorney, you know that you regularly spend a lot of money advertising, but most methods yield lackluster results. Often you can pay between $100 and $500 per lead and still wind up getting leads that are not qualified, if you even get a hold of them at all. You can often burn through 5 to 10 leads just to get one serious prospective client on the phone. The solution is injuryattorneyleads.com. Injuryattorneyleads.com has people reaching out to us across the country. Once they fill out a form, which is where most other lead companies stop, injuryattorneyleads.com is just getting started. They reach out to the person who fills out that form and re-verifies their information is correct over the phone before live transferring qualified individuals directly to your law firm. These are people who have been in an accident and who want to talk to a lawyer about their case. And they are going to be some of the best qualified people you can possibly talk to. We've been told that the close rates on these average around 60% turning into a new client. So they are more expensive than regular leads, but they're way more responsive. To set up a time to talk to a client generation specialist, visit injuryattorneyleads.com and schedule a time to talk today. Again, that's injuryattorneyleads.com. All right. And I am joined with Kirsten Howe. Kirsten, how are you doing today?
I'm just fine, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. So Kirsten is, again, the founder and managing partner of Absolute Trust Counsel. She earned her law degree, cum laude, from the University of California, Hastings College of Law, and a BS in biology from the University of Michigan. While in law school, she was a member of the Thurston Society and the managing editor of the Hastings Law Journal. She's a noted speaker on estate planning issues. Kirsten's also a member of the Trust and Estates section of the California State Bar and the Estate Planning and Probate, elder law, and women's sections of the Contra Costa County Bar. She also serves on the board of directors. I cannot talk today. The board of directors for the Estate Planning Council of Diablo Valley, and is a member of the Robert G. McGrath chapter of the American Inns of Court. So, question number one, Kirsten, as always, is what did I miss?
Well, I'm a mother of 2 grown sons, of whom I'm very proud, and I think that's maybe the most important thing I've done in my life. But I do a lot of public speaking. One of the things that I spent quite a bit of time doing in the before times was doing presentations on elder financial abuse for senior centers, church groups, just trying to educate the world. I don't do elder financial abuse litigation. I don't do any kind of litigation, but I think that educating people is a key to helping them protect themselves.
Right. Well, again, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any, and being aware of the traps and pitfalls that people can fall into is a very important way of avoiding those. I mean, if it's not clearly marked out, lots of people fall into this. I actually was just talking to another attorney who did a lot of elder financial abuse just last week. And it was an area that I knew a little bit about, but didn't realize just how bad it could be. Some of the predatory practices that people use. So let's talk about that a little bit. So you work with particularly elderly disabled clients. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience in that regard, and what it is that you do in particular to help them?
Sure. Well, a lot of times what happens is the client's adult children will first be the ones who reach out to us because something has happened or something is seriously happening. The parents have fallen, or they're in the hospital, they've had a stroke, something has put them into the long-term care world, and the children don't know what to do next. They don't know where to turn. They don't know what the resources are. They don't know what the legal responsibilities and rights are. And so a lot of it is, again, educating and pointing people to the right things, helping them come up with a to-do list. A lot of it ends up being more social work than legal work. But on the legal side, what we do for many of our clients is we help them, first of all, make sure they have all of their estate planning in place, because if you don't have estate planning and you become incapacitated, it's extraordinarily difficult for your family. So we want to make sure that we've covered that base very thoroughly and thoughtfully. A lot of times that incapacity part of the estate plan is just kind of an add-on that we don't put a lot of energy into. When it's time to use it, you really appreciate it if you've put some thought and energy into it. And so there's that. And we also, we help clients become eligible for Medi-Cal, which is Medicaid. That's what we call it in California. Medi-Cal. We got to do it different. No matter what it is, we got to do it different. So we help them qualify for Medi-Cal to help pay for nursing home care if that's appropriate for them, which can really save the family a ton of money that they don't necessarily have. And it alleviates so much stress to take that off their plate. So we can help with that as well.
Gotcha. So what is it in California that makes California different from a lot of other states? I'm sure that there's some particularities, some idiosyncrasies that make California very unique. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, great question. And I'm sure that everybody in your audience is thinking, oh yeah, everything about California makes it different. But from a legal perspective, and in my world, a couple of things I would say. One is that we have, every state has a probate process. That's what your family has to do. If you die, you own property. Now we have a dead person who owns property. We're going to have to do some sort of a probate process. And every state's process is different. California's process is very cumbersome, very expensive, takes a long time. So we in California, one of the primary goals of estate planning is to figure out how we're going to avoid that probate process. And that's not true in every state. In some states, you fill out a form, you turn it into the clerk's office, and you're done. But for us, it's worth putting a lot of thought and energy into working around that probate process. So that's number one. And then getting back to my Medi-Cal clients.
Yeah.
California is the only state that has not updated its Medicaid eligibility laws to conform with the federal requirements. So eligibility is much easier to achieve in California than any other state, which makes it really great for my clients. They don't have to do quite so much to become eligible. And a lot of people are not aware of that, and they are unnecessarily spending savings that they don't have to spend.
Gotcha. So that's a really important piece of education that can literally save people probably tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, which means more money you can pass on to your posterity as well.
Yes.
So now when you said you work with disabled clients, what are some of the pitfalls? What makes that very, very different from normal, wealth transfer issues? Like, is that helping to provide for a disabled spouse if their other spouse passes away, making sure that they're cared for, or is it more to do with their property and belongings? What are some of the ins and outs that comes from dealing with elderly disabled clients?
Well, it's all of that you said. Those are very good points, making sure that we've thought through, well, what happens if this one spouse dies and the other one? So one example is if one spouse is receiving Medi-Cal, in a skilled nursing facility, and Medi-Cal is paying for it, and the other spouse dies, now leaving everything to that spouse in the facility. Well, now they lose their benefit because they're too wealthy.
They're too wealthy all of a sudden.
Yeah, so we have to plan for that. So that's one thing. What my clients tend to experience in that realm of elderly disabled that is the most challenging is, again, I don't want to be a broken record, but going back to that whole idea of planning for incapacity. The clients are bumping up against that all the time with, say suddenly the parents are declining, the children feel that they need to step in, and maybe there's no power of attorney at all, or we have a power of attorney that's 15 years old, and no bank is going to honor that without a lot of pushback because they have to protect themselves. I get that. And the power of attorney may say this power of attorney will only be effective if two doctors say in writing that the principal is incapacitated. So now you've got to drag your elderly father to two doctors and convince these two doctors that they should in writing state that their patient is incapacitated. That's a tremendous hoop to have to jump through. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. And all of that can be planned around. We don't have to have documents like that. So, I think that with elderly clients, before we get to that kind of crisis level where somebody's in the hospital, somebody's already in a nursing home, somebody's already on that dementia pathway, having a refresh of the estate plan from the perspective of, okay, now we're in our 80s. What makes sense for us now? That might be completely different from the estate plan that made sense when we were in our 50s.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Oh, got some feedback there. Sorry. Okay, feedback is gone. That might have been from my mic. We'll see.
Okay.
So, all right. So let's switch footing here just for a little bit. One thing I didn't mention is Kirsten actually has her own podcast that she has, and you can actually find that on her website. I believe there's links to it if I'm not mistaken. So in fact, let's just jump back over here for just a second so our people can see it. So here is the link to her podcast. And of course, she has a blog as well. And I actually thought some of the more recent topics you talked about seemed very interesting. It's called Absolute Trust Talk with Kirsten Howe. And so one of the most recent questions you talked about, and it's kind of related to this, obviously you deal with the necessities in life, you deal with death and taxes in your line of work, which sounds rather miserable to me. And to most people, and that's why it's important to work with a competent and skilled attorney like Kirsten. So one of your more recent ones, and I've talked to a lot of people, I've seen families dissolve because of a dispute over a house. And one of your most recent podcasts was actually about elder mediation and how it can help calm family conflicts. Can you talk a little bit about what exactly that general phrase even means? What does it mean to speak of elder mediation, and how does it work to calm the conflicts, and what are some of the conflicts that people get into?
Sure. So mediation, just generally, and including elder mediation, involves having a neutral person in the room or on the Zoom, is how mediations are being done nowadays, having a neutral person who is trained in helping people achieve agreement. So it's not about a decision. That's arbitration. Mediation is, we are all here together because we have some conflict, we have some disagreement, we want to figure out a way that we can come up with something we all can live with. And in the elder context, it could be there are disagreements about the approach to care. Some of the siblings think that mom should stay in her home and we should pay for 24-hour round-the-clock care, and we don't care how that works. Or some of the siblings think mom should stay in her home and oldest daughter, who is the one who lives nearby, should be going over there every night after work and basically giving up her life while the other siblings are off doing what they want to do. Sometimes it's around the care, which is inextricably intertwined with finances, because care, you either provide it free because you love someone or you pay for it.
Yeah.
So those are a lot of the issues, that just disagreements. It tends to be among the siblings about how to deal with parents, but it can also be the parents are involved. The parents have their own thoughts about what they want, and that might conflict with what the children are able to do for the parents. The parents might expect that the children come over every day after work and make sure that they are fed and cared for, and the kids are like, we can't do this anymore, Mom. We've got to figure this out. So those are common things. Other kinds of mediation in my world tend to revolve around, okay, now the parents have died and we're fighting over who gets what. And and it's never about the what. It's about, you stole my boyfriend in high school and I've never forgiven you, and now I'm in a position where I can make you pay, because I can drag this thing out and make your life miserable. So mediators can help in that situation as well. But
finding a more equitable distribution method for all of the various belongings and things. So what are the keys then to a successful transfer of wealth? What should people bear in mind as they approach these sorts of end of life issues?
Well, I would say, I'm a planner, so make sure that the estate plan is up to snuff now, not 20 years old. And, as I said, in California, we use trusts. So that includes making sure all of the assets that should be in the trust are in the trust, and making sure that your people will be able to find everything. That people don't realize how huge a burden it is to step into this role. Now you're the executor, your parents have died, now you're the trustee, and you don't even know what bank they banked at. How are you possibly going to administer this estate if you can't find all the assets? So leave some breadcrumbs, gather up all your account statements and put them somewhere so that someone can find them. That would be my heartfelt wish for all my families. Just make it easy. Make it easy.
I heard a discussion the other day. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, but as we move towards a more digital society, one of the roadblocks people are running into a lot is actually lack of knowledge of passwords, not just accounts, but how to log into different accounts and get access to certain things. Is that something that you ever have dealt with, or that you give advice on to your clients, or is that still kind of on the cutting edge of some of the issues that people just keep, hitting their heads against?
Well, we always talk about it, because more and more, even our older clients, we all are trying to be conservative. We're trying to be mindful of the environment. So a lot of us don't get paper statements coming in the mail. Mm-hmm. We do our banking online. And if there is no password left behind, what are you going to do? You may not. That's one of the ways you figure out where your parents banked, is you wait for the mail to come. But if mail isn't coming, So what we always do, there's a place in the estate planning binder for clients to either note all their passwords, or at least write, this is where you can find all my passwords, because most of us of a certain age are old school and our passwords are written down somewhere.
Yeah.
But if we don't tell someone where that is, then it doesn't do any good.
Sounds like I need to get a new sponsor. There's LastPass. There's a couple companies out there that keep all your passwords in a safe possible way for you. And of course, we live in a time where every password now has to be different, and they all have different criteria and everything else. So I imagine in the next 10 or 15 years, this is just going to start becoming a really big issue as more and more people start dealing with the passing of relatives who are more and more intertwined with being online. So
digital. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Right now, most people aren't in that situation, but I agree with you.
All right, we got a little static there. I don't know if that was my end or your end. One of us is having a low bandwidth issue here. Looks like we caught up. Okay, there we go. Technology, it's going to outer space. We accept it as it is. I love the fact that we can do this via Zoom. I've, as longtime listeners know, I've run this podcast since 2013, and it used to be a lot harder to coordinate with people. But of course, nowadays with COVID for the last year, everyone has gotten really, really comfortable with Zoom. So let me ask you that question. We'll change feed here again for a minute. And what kind of unique? Sometimes it's a challenge. It provides very, very unique challenges, but also sometimes it provides very unique opportunities. What kind of changes has the coronavirus done in the way that you do your work? What has it caused or affected?
Okay. Well, a few things, and I would say mostly good things. One thing is we do all of our meetings by Zoom or by phone if we have to. I do have some clients who just can't get there, but we do our meetings largely by Zoom. And I think that has been on the whole a very positive thing. I think that clients like it. They are more relaxed. They are more comfortable. I think I'm a nice person, but I'm still an attorney. And to them, most of my clients have never had to deal with an attorney. They're not business owners. They're not suing people. They just have. So I am inherently intimidating to them, and going to my office, having to get dressed up, having to park the car, that's just a lot. And if they can sit at home and talk to me on a screen and I look just like them, I'm just a person on a screen, I think it makes them more comfortable and it facilitates our relationship. So that's been a tremendously good thing for my clients. And for me, it's more efficient, of course.
Yeah.
How that works. You can line appointments up back to back and get them done. But the other thing is it has enabled me to reach further geographically. I'm a California lawyer, so I can only represent California residents or, people in other states who are administering California trusts. But I can work with anybody anywhere in California. In the before times, it was rare for me to have estate planning clients who, were in Southern California because they are never going to come to my office.
Yeah.
Meet with me. But now the meeting's over Zoom. So I've got lots of clients all over California.
You're not the first attorney that said that, and I think that's really interesting. However, you're the first attorney that pointed out the fact that when you get to meet with your clients and they're in a more comfortable position, it kind of changes the tone. So I think that's really kind of neat. I imagine a lot of those changes are probably going to stick with us moving forward. Obviously, there's something to be said for meeting face to face, but I do think that for the most part, a lot of the changes we've had that have made things more digital are good. I oftentimes have to wonder what would have happened if it was 1988 or sometime around then when this pandemic hit. Like, I think that it would be really, really hard to accommodate business the way that we've accommodated it. I mean, you'd probably still have telephone calls, but
but
back then it was still like 25 cents a minute for long distance. So
that's true. Yeah. And it's just not the same. Telephone calls are so much harder than video calls, I think.
Oh, no, I agree. I remember being a kid and watching, was it the Jetsons? And they had like the TV screen you could talk to. And it always just seemed like futuristic technology. And I remember there's even a TV show on the Discovery Channel back when it just actually did like Discovery stuff, not live action TV.
Yeah.
And it was called like Beyond 2000. And they were talking about the future of the video phone. And it actually always seemed very improbable to me because you'd have to like go stand by the corded phone on your wall and talk, which didn't seem like that great of a solution. But of course now everybody carries around a miniature phone up. I'm getting blacked out here because of Zoom, but in miniature camera in their pocket and everything else. So have you found that moving to a more digital way has changed other aspects of what you do? For instance, paperwork. Do you do online signing for people? Do you still have to have things mailed out, physically signed and returned? How is that changing?
Well, unfortunately or fortunately, in the area of law that I practice, we still have to have actual signatures
Physical.
In front of a notary. In most cases, we have to have things notarized. And in the state of California, some states have, remote video notarization. So I could be the notary, you could be the person signing the document, and we could be here on Zoom together, and that's legitimate.
That's good enough.
Yeah, not in California. And so, if I could blink my eyes and have the California legislature do something that I wanted, it would be that. It would be that they would legalize video notarization.
Video notarization. Well, one of my questions I usually ask, you may have actually, it's one of my last ones, but you may have just answered it right off the bat there, which is if you could wave your magic wand and change one law that affects you or your clients. So it sounds like that might be that law. I
have another one.
Well, save it for the end. You guys have to listen to the end of the podcast to find out. So keep that one in mind.
Okay, got it. Okay.
All right. Well, let's go a little bit lighter now. And I mentioned this before in the pre-roll. I mentioned this to most attorneys I talk to. I love being able to humanize attorneys. And one thing that does humanize people is failure. We all have aspects in our jobs, in our lives, professional lives, where something didn't go according to plan. I haven't shared this with a lot of our listeners, but I actually missed out on about $200,000 worth of Dogecoin, which just rocketed again today. I had over 300,000 of those like just 2 months ago. And back when the GameStop stocks were going crazy, Robinhood froze my account and they froze it on a sell, and then it plummeted and they sold it at the lower price, and then it shot back up and I couldn't buy it all back. And if I would have had that right now, it would be worth somewhere around the $150,000, $200,000, which is not small change. So if I would have just left it alone, which is what I should have done, is a very expensive lesson to learn. I would have been fine. So that's, I do a lot of digital marketing and day trading. So that's kind of a lesson I had to learn the hard way. So there's something for you guys listening about yours truly. But so Kirsten, is there something that happened at some point in your legal career where things just didn't turn out the way you were hoping, or maybe even turned out for the worse, and in the process, of course, hopefully you learned something about that, or it changed the way that you operate?
Well, what I would say is when I first graduated from law school, was a brand new lawyer, my first job out of the gate was in a litigation firm, and we did all kinds of commercial litigation, when contract disputes. We also did some asbestos litigation, and I thought that that's what I wanted to do, and I did that for about 3 years. And I discovered about myself that I'm really not a litigator. It's just not me. And eventually I discovered how much I really love doing estate planning. I love being closely involved in my clients' lives. I love hearing their stories. So, it's a little hard to say, I'm just not cut out for that. I don't have the skills. I don't have what it takes. I can't stand up in a courtroom and think on my feet the way they do on TV. That's not me. And
you played your strengths, and you're a planner. You're someone who has, it sounds like, a really good attention to detail and a lot of knowledge in an area. And so, no, I think that's very, very great. So let's turn that around then. What's one of your proudest moments? What's one of your biggest successes ever or in recent history that you're particularly proud of?
Well, I think the thing that I'm most proud of is my law firm and my team that I have assembled. I have a fantastic team, and they have the mindset that is important to me. It's all about taking care of the clients and making sure their experience is optimal, is as good as it can be. And I built that. I built that with help from my team, but I'm just so proud of them. I think that they are a success every day. So, maybe I'm patting myself on the back there, but I really am.
No, that's a great thing. I mean, it really is. And I have a very small, I'm not quite a one-man shop. I've got a couple of people that I work with on the side that'll freelance for me, but I would love to be at the position someday where, I can employ 5 or 10 people, because then you're making a difference in the lives of a lot of different people. And that's huge. That really is huge. So that's definitely something to be proud of. And I think, a lot of the attorneys I talk to would be very proud of the same thing, but it's still, that's an incredible thing. And you're making a difference in the lives of people. You're making a difference in the lives of their families, that work for you. And of course, the people that those people in turn help. So I think that's a wonderful thing to be proud of. Absolutely. Well, here in a minute, we're going to learn the second thing you would use that magic wand on. Maybe you got a genie lamp instead. You get 2 or 3 wishes here, right? One of them is digital notarization, but we'll talk about the other stuff. I am going to jump over and we're going to read a note from our second sponsor today. So we'll come back over here and see your smiling face first. Absolute Trust Counsel, again, is Kirsten's website. And our second sponsor today is going to be Rocket SEO from hundreds of customers. Rocket SEO. Are you a business owner who knows that being on page 1 of Google is important, but you're afraid to work with an SEO company because you know that SEO is both expensive and also slow? Well, not anymore. Rocket SEO from hundreds of customers forces you to page 1 of Google safely and legally through the power of the news media. Rocket SEO utilizes national news media campaigns across a gamut of news sites that rank instantly. You can boost your website's ranking in Google in 1 week or less with our simple system that leverages the power of major media companies and network affiliates of ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox, as well as news sites from the Boston Herald to the Sacramento Bee, and all stops in between across the United States to put you on page 1 in under a week, oftentimes 2 or 3 times on page 1, oftentimes also for dozens of keywords. To learn more, visit hundredsofcustomers.com/rocket. That's hundredsofcustomers.com/rocket, or you can email press@hundredsofcustomers.com. All right. And so before we ask you the magic bullet question or the magic wand question, I'm sure you deal with people on a regular basis, Kirsten, that come into your office and have some misconceptions about what it is that you do, what it is that they need to do, et cetera. What would you say are 1 or 2 of the biggest misconceptions people have when it comes to things like estate planning, working with an elderly parent and whatnot?
Well, I would say 2 things. Just generally estate planning, a lot of people think that if you set up an estate plan, you have a trust, that's it, you're done. You never have to think about it again. You never have to touch it again. And that might work for some people, but once somebody dies, and this is always so interesting to me, we have married couples who have a joint trust and one spouse dies. There's legal work that has to be done. Having a trust doesn't get you out of doing the legal work that has to be done when somebody dies. There just are things that you have to do when somebody dies. So that's a very common misconception. We have clients who come in and they want to do some kind of update and they tell me, oh, my spouse died 10 years ago. I say, well, what? What, you didn't do anything at that time? Now we got to go backwards and do all this stuff for you. So that's one. And another one is, people think that, oh, I have the power of attorney. My mom gave me a power of attorney. Well, that's really only a piece of paper. You've got to figure out what exactly is required for you to implement that power of attorney. And people are very often surprised to discover this power of attorney is going to be a real difficult thing for you to deal with. So just kind of, I guess, if I had to say anything, it's just not really understanding. And getting back to my thing, I think educating people is so important, and you got to educate them all along the way, every single time you meet with them.
That makes sense. It does. That actually popped a question in my head and I lost it. I was about to ask it. That's the problem with thinking on your feet. Sometimes the train just leaves the station a little early. It was going to be related to what you were just talking about, but I kind of lost it. So let me ask you one more question, and then we'll get to the last question there. What do you do personally that helps you to stay on top of all the changes to the law? Like, I'm sure it's a constantly evolving area of law, particularly in the last 12, 13 months or so. What do you do? What keeps you on top of your game, and how do you share that with your clients and potential clients?
Well, you have to do a lot of reading. I subscribe to a number of different resources that are constantly updating me, and continuing education. We are legally required to do continuing education, which is fairly easy to meet those requirements. But going to the right kinds of continuing education programs, I always get way more than my required minimum number of hours in a year, ridiculously way more. But so belonging to different organizations that put on every month continuing education, I find that very helpful. And just having a network of colleagues. I have lots of other estate planners who do what I do, who are my friends and colleagues, and we help each other. We reach out, what are you doing? What would you do if you had this problem? So I learn from them all the time.
The iron sharpens iron method of working with other people in your field and whatnot. Makes perfect sense. All right, so let's get to the fun question then, because that's always a good time. We know that you would get rid of the legal issues that stop digital notarization. That sounds like it would be a really great thing to implement. And you're not the first person who's actually mentioned that to me. I don't remember if you're the first person in California to mention it. But I do think that seems very practical. So you have the magic wand. You can make it's a genie lamp. You can make up to 2 more if you want. What other changes would you make that would affect either you or your clients if you could do 1 or 2 more? Assuming we still have the internet.
I would say there's really just yeah.
There we go. Okay,
and
you're back.
Free medical care for all. But let's move away from that. What I would say, the big one, we have just a huge and growing dementia problem in this country, and there are insufficient resources to deal with it. And I see it every day. My clients and their families are struggling. I mentioned that we can help clients become eligible for Medi-Cal to help pay for nursing home care. Mm-hmm. But most dementia sufferers, they are for many years before they qualify for nursing home care, they are in need of assistance, and there is no government benefit to pay for that. Medi-Cal, Medicaid, none of that. Medicare doesn't pay for the kind of assistance that someone with moderate to somewhat severe dementia needs. They need protective environments. That's memory care, that's assisted living. The government doesn't pay for that. And it's so hard for families. So I don't know what the answer is, but I would fix it. That would be my magic wand. Just fix that problem.
I think that is really important. Just end of life issues in general, when people sometimes at their most vulnerable, it's those are always the people we want to protect the most. And obviously, as the families have kind of changed, the family dynamic has changed over the last couple of generations. Really, people live farther from their parents now, and even if you live close to your parents, if they're really struggling, if they have severe dementia, I know it can be a real taxing issue to take care of them. So I think your heart's in the right place there. I think I would have to agree with that. So 100%. Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer here, but I'll give you the final word. Is there any final thoughts or things that you'd like to share with our listeners? Anything that we didn't really scratch the surface on today that you'd like to touch on, Kirsten?
I'm just always wanting to reiterate. Are you still seeing me?
I'm still seeing you. We're a little laggy again, but I think it's catching up. We're having storms here. It might be on my end. It might just be, again, it's going to outer space. We're at 85%. We're good. So go ahead.
Okay. I just got the sign across my screen saying my internet is unstable. That's why I asked. But anyway, I just want to reiterate that keeping your estate plan up to date is so critically important. It's going to save your family so much time and aggravation, whether you're alive or after your death. And it's worth it. It's, getting an updated estate plan might cost you a few dollars now, but having to unwind something that's a mess is going to be such a tremendous hassle. That's my wish for everyone. Update your estate plan.
Update your estate plan. Get an estate plan if you don't have one. And of course, the best way to do that, if you're in California, is working with a competent attorney. And I don't know that I could recommend for you any higher than I can Kirsten and what she's doing over there with Absolute Trust Counsel. I want to thank you, Kirsten, for being on the call with me today. I had a great time. I think I learned a lot and changed the way I view a few things, including the types of changes that this digital environment really has brought into how we operate. So I think that's really kind of a neat thing. If you are in California and you need someone to do estate planning, again, you can visit absolutetrustcounsel.com, which you can see on our screen right now. That's absolutetrustcounsel.com. Well, Kirsten, thank you very much for being with us today. Really did appreciate it. And it was a good time.
Thank you so much, Justin. I enjoyed myself. You did a great job as one podcaster to another. You made it easy and not uncomfortable.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's
which is our job, right?
That's what our job is. We're here just to host. So you've been listening to The Attorney Post. You can find us online at theattorneypost.com. We are also on all of your major podcast channels, from Apple to Spotify to Stitcher to Google Podcasts, Deezer, etc. Obviously, if you go to theattorneypost.com, you can find the list of where we are located. You will find almost every day we're putting out new podcasts right now, talking with attorneys who are at the top of their game. And until next time, remember, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. So make sure you're working with a competent attorney like the ones we feature here on The Attorney Post. Thank you guys, and bye-bye.